On August 16, 1942, something truly bizarre unfolded in Daly City, California, a tranquil suburb near San Francisco. At approximately 11:30 a.m., a sagging Navy blimp began a descent from the sky, heading towards Bellevue Avenue. It looked like a big broken sausage, a firefighter recalled to the San Francisco Chronicle in 1979. The blimp briefly perched on a rooftop before drifting off and becoming entangled in a web of power lines. It sliced through the wires, causing electric arcs to shoot into the air before finally coming to rest on the ground. The engines crashed into the pavement, with one clogged by earth. The propellers were bent, and the fuel from the blimp spilled into the street. Chaos erupted on Bellevue Avenue as residents fled their homes and raced to the scene of the crash. Police and firefighters quickly arrived, holding back the crowds and rushing to rescue the crew. But to their bewilderment, there was no crew to rescue. The gondola of the blimp was undisturbed. The pilot's parachutes were neatly stowed in their usual place. The lifeboat was still there, and one pilot's cap remained on the instrument panel. The blimp had no malfunctions, not even the radio. Even a bomb was still attached to the blimp, though naval officials later assured everyone it posed no danger, as it would only detonate in water. Fortunately, a second bomb had detached and landed harmlessly on a golf course near San Francisco. A photographer captured a striking image of the crash, with the blimp gondola protruding out into the air from a city street, surrounded by crowds, cars, and houses, its deflated gas bag hanging behind it like a cape. The photograph was widely published in newspapers across the nation, often accompanied by the sensationalized caption, "Mystery surrounds blimp crash at Daly City." Search parties were called, with Navy servicemen scouring the land, air, and sea for the missing crew. A Navy spokesperson told the United Press that they had zero clues. What happened to the missing crew? Where were they? Come 1941, the U.S. had entered World War II, and the Navy deployed blimps for routine submarine patrols along the coast. This Navy blimp, known as L-8, took off from Treasure Island, an artificial naval base situated in San Francisco Bay, early that morning. It was piloted by Lieutenant Ernest DeWitt Cody and Ensign Charles E. Adams, both experienced in flying lighter-than-air ships. These are ships that can be powered and steered. A colleague testified at an inquest just days after the incident that both men were in good spirits and health on the morning of the 16th. Earlier that day, a brief message was radioed from the blimp to Treasure Island. "I'm investigating suspicious oil slick. Stand by." This potential oil slick could have been a sign of a submarine in the area. This was the last message the crew sent, although in an old newspaper clipping it does say that 110 messages were received, which indicated that the craft was having problems. There were also reports from various sources of men being seen parachuting, but nothing was confirmed. Despite the intact gondola, there were a few oddities about the state of the blimp, aside from the fact it was crewless and grounded in a city street. The door was open and latched to the outside, a condition never seen during flight, and could only be opened from the inside by the crew. The engines were turned off, suggesting an attempt to slow the blimp down. The weighted briefcase of classified documents, meant to be jettisoned in an emergency, remained, implying either there was no emergency or the men couldn't react in time. 2 life vests were missing, but it was common for the crew to wear these over water. The L-8 did not go unnoticed before it came to rest on Bellevue Avenue. The ship was observed by both civilians and officials, including a member of the Navy's armed guard unit stationed on the cargo ship Albert Gallatin. At the inquest, he described witnessing the blimp circling over nearby waters above 2 flares, which the Navy later confirmed had been released by the blimp, consistent with the actions of investigating an oil slick. "We figured by that time it was a submarine," said Wesley Frank Lamoureux. "From then on, I am not too positive of the actions of the dirigible, except that it would come down very close over the water. In fact, it seemed to almost sit on top of the water." Fearing the presence of a submarine, the Albert Gallatin crew sounded the general alarm, manned their guns, and quickly departed the area. Lamoureux's final sighting of the blimp showed it lifting its nose from the water, seemingly preparing to ascend. Perplexing witness accounts further fueled the mystery surrounding L-8. Ida Ruby, a telephone operator who was on a horse ride near the beach, spied the blimp through binoculars and told United Press she was quite sure she saw 3 men in the gondola, The Navy said it had confirmed that only 2 men were aboard, although there were 3 parachutes in the racks. It was drifting toward the beach with the wind. I watched it with binoculars and was quite sure I could see 3 persons in the cabin. The Blimp passed over me, and I could see the wheels graze L Small Peak, Ruby said. Then we heard the sirens over Daly City. On August 18th, just 2 days after the crash, the Navy determined that there was no valid reason for the men to have left their ship voluntarily. There had been no fire, no attack, no adverse weather conditions, and no technical issues. An official testified at the inquest that a stowaway was impossible. They theorized that perhaps the gondola door malfunctioned, causing one of the men to fall out. The second crew member, hoping to quickly rescue him, might have piloted the ship close to the water, where he also fell overboard, both dying. This continues to be a theory, and the actual fate of the crew is unknown since their bodies were never found. Unsurprisingly, this story has left some people not satisfied. Other theories stated the men fell overboard after getting into a fight. They went AWOL, meaning absent without leave. One or both were spies. They were taken captive aboard a Japanese submarine, or they were abducted by UFOs. But the most probable theory is also the most mundane and frightening. While UFOs are exotic, slipping and falling is not, reminding us that death can come from one silly mistake. As one reporter noted 2 days after the crash, had the 2 men remained in the cabin, they could have stepped to the street without injury. Whether you believe in supernatural explanations or more rational theories, the story of the 1942 ghost blimp is a reminder of how some wartime mysteries continue to baffle us even decades later. If you enjoyed this dive into history's unexplained events, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more intriguing stories from the past.